Census data shows that in the 1970s, 35.6% of black men had never been married. By 2020, that number had jumped to 51.4% for, you understand? So it's a lot of black men that never been married. So marriage is kind of going out the window for black women that never been married. It went from 27% in 1970 to 47.5% in 2020. And that's not a small change. That's a major cultural shift. And I'm not saying marriage alone solves everything. I'm absolutely not saying that. I'm saying every married household, and I'm not saying every married household is good or every unmarried household is bad. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying family structure matters. Discipline matters. Fathers matter. Mothers matter. Stable homes matter. Standards matter. And when those things break down, the entire community feels it. So when I talk about the divide between Willie D's position and my position, I'm not saying Willie D isn't black enough. I absolutely not saying that, brother. Fifth Ward. I'm saying I'm certainly not saying I know better than him. Okay, I'm saying we're speaking from two different black worldviews. Willie D is speaking from the worldview that says the system is against us. I'm standing with the black kid, no matter what. And I'm speaking from the worldview that says I'm standing with black people by telling black children the truth about before they end up in prison. And that's not the same thing. Now let's bring it back to Carmelo Anthony. The public reporting says Carmelo Anthony was convicted of murder and sentenced to 35 years in prison for this fatal stabbing of Austin Metcalf at this Frisco track meet. The defense argues self-defense. The jury rejected self-defense. The reporting also says that the case became controversial because Anthony is black. Metcalf was white, and no black jurors were seated on the jury. So yes, race is part of the public conversation. I'm not ignoring that. I'm not pretending that that doesn't matter. But race being part of the conversation doesn't mean race answers the legal questions. And the legal questions, number one question wasn't, is Carmelo black? The legal question wasn't, was Austin white? The legal question wasn't, do black people trust the system? The legal question was whether Carmelo Anthony was legally justified in using deadly force. And that's the question people keep trying to skip over. They want to stop at that. They want to stop at Austin put his hands on him. But the law doesn't stop there. The law asks whether deadly force was immediately necessary. The law asks whether the response was reasonable. The law asks whether this was a situation where pulling a knife and stabbing another teenager in the chest made legal sense. And that's where a lot of people get lost. They think self-defense means if somebody touches me, I can do whatever I want in response. That's not the law. They think no duty to retreat means they don't have a duty to think. That's not the law either. You can have no duty to retreat and still be guilty of murder. You can be touched first and still respond with too much force. You can be scared and still make an unreasonable decision. You can be black, you can feel threatened, you can feel disrespected, you can still do something that sends you to prison for decades. And that's the truth black boys need to hear. They don't need adults lying to them for applause. They don't need celebrities telling them every fight is racial. They don't need people on the internet telling them that being disrespected gives them the right to escalate. They need somebody to say, walk away if you can. Somebody type walk away. They need somebody to say your pride isn't worth your freedom. They need somebody to say your emotions can't control your emotions can't control your hands. They need somebody to say if you carry a weapon, you better understand one bad decision can turn you from a student into a defendant. And let me be clear, that message isn't anti-black. That message is pro-black survival. Okay? I'm not trying to help the prosecution. I'm not trying to defend white people. I'm not trying to keep black boys. All I'm trying to do is keep young black men alive and free. I'm trying to keep black families from sitting in courtrooms crying. And I'm trying to keep black mothers from visiting their sons in prison. I'm trying to keep black fathers from burying their children and watching their sons get sentenced. I'm trying to tell the truth before the system gets the chance to teach the lesson the hard way. That's why this debate with Willie D matters. It put two black viewpoints on screen at the same time. One side said, don't trust the system, so I'm suspicious of the verdict. The other side said, don't blindly trust the system either, but I'm not going to ignore the evidence and the law just because the defendant is black. Both of those views come from the black experience. But only one of those views teaches our children how to survive in the world that actually exists. Because here's the bottom line. Carmelo Anthony isn't going home because people on YouTube think the jury got it wrong. He isn't going home because celebrities are mad. He isn't going home because people say it was self-defense on social media. He was convicted of murder. He was sentenced to 35 years. He's appealing, but right now, that's the reality. And if we're serious about helping black children, we can't wait until the sentence to start telling the truth. This case exposed something bigger than one verdict. It exposed the fact that Black America doesn't speak with one voice anymore. Some Black people are still locked in the protest first mindset, where every racial conflict becomes a system versus us. The other Black people are moving back toward older Black American values. Somebody type FBA in the chat room. Education, marriage, family, discipline, self-control, emotional control, faith, home ownership, business ownership, law and order, personal responsibility. And that doesn't mean we're ignoring racism. It was much worse back then, and they still exhibited those things. And that doesn't mean we trust everybody in power. That doesn't mean we stop fighting injustice. It means we stop confusing racial loyalty with legal blindness. And see, real Black leadership isn't just telling Black people what they want to hear. And you already know, I'm not going to do that. Not over here. See, real Black leadership is telling people what they need to hear. Real Black leadership says, yes, racism is real, but consequences are real too. Real Black leadership says, yes, the system can be unfair, but bad decisions can still destroy your life. See, that's courage. We love our children, but loving them means correcting them before the world punishes them. So when people ask why this Carmelo verdict has caused so much division, shout out to Afro Thunder. Thank you for being the first person to contribute to the super chat. But again, people want to know why this is called the answers. Look, why does this cause so much division? Willie D gave the voice to the anger, and I gave the voice to the standard. Willie D spoke to the pain, and I spoke to the consequences. Willie D spoke from distrust. I spoke from law, facts, and survival. And now Black America has to decide what message we're going to teach our children. Are we going to teach them that every racial conflict is a green light to react? Or are we going to teach them that discipline, self-control, and judgment can be the difference between going home and going to prison? It's your decision.